As Hansu made his way to the academy with the knight's son Taker, he wondered if it was okay for him to enter the academy while being chased by the royals. The outsider god assured him that everything was all right. Hansu then asked the reason why the god insisted on him attending the academy, threatening not to buy picture books if the god didn't tell him. The outsider god criticized his savage threats and threatened Hansu that she would cry. As they arrived at the Hogwarts Academy, the knight's first son handed the admission permit to the guards, which was confirmed by the teachers, while Taker panicked about returning to the academy he hated the most. As they entered the academy, Hansu noticed that it was more like a military base than a typical academy. The knight's youngest son then informed him that many people would be watching, and calling him by his first name would be weird. Hansu had already expected this, as he had enrolled in the academy with the identity of a young master's servant, so he told the youngest son to call him whatever he felt comfortable with. The girl sitting next to him introduced herself as Salona and expressed her hopes of getting along. As he checked her stats, he noticed the cursed nobility, which meant that she was a former noble. Later, he wore uniforms and prepared for the admission test, but Dialoka commented that the uniform didn't suit him, and it was obvious that he would be ignored since he was only level 1. She advised him to dye the uniform in a catchy color like red, but Hansu declined, as it was not allowed, and commanded her to stay in the dormitory. Later, as the exam began, the teacher was amazed by the fact that Hansu managed to pass all the physical exams despite being a level 1. The teacher asked if he knew about fairy applicants, thinking it was a common question in the exam. Hansu answered that he knew a bit about them, as he had been shot by a fairy's arrow. The teacher found his answer interesting, considering the fact that he was able to face off against fairies with bows despite his curse and mixed blessings. As a result, the teacher gave him a pass on the test. As they shook hands, the teacher told him to always seek his help if anything happened, to which Hansu gracefully accepted and left. As he was heading to his dorm room, the outsider god urged him to go to the statue. Hansu inquired why, and the god replied that they liked the statue. Later, when he arrived in front of the statue, the knight's youngest son called out to him and informed him that it was a statue of the hero Pedonicus, who was summoned in ancient times. Then suddenly, a senior called out to Hansu and told him to hang the cloth. Hansu questioned what was on it, and the senior replied that it was for welcoming the heroes who would be attending the academy. He quickly realized that the heroes were his former classmates. As he started to panic, the outsider god assured him that everything was still all right and that the other gods weren't around. If the classmates arrived, Hansu would meet the goddess and the other gods, although he planned to avoid meeting them until he grew stronger. However, he decided to trust the outsider god, which made the god really happy. Suddenly, the senior called out to him again and told him something that he didn't understand. Then the guy grabbed Hansu by the collar and took him somewhere where he saw another freshman student getting bullied. The guy then pinned Hansu to the wall and informed him that they were in a place where even the staff doesn't come, meaning there was no surveillance either. Hansu took the opportunity and grabbed the guy by his neck, summoning a portal from which he took out a hammer and used it to hit the guy in the head. He then went to the other senior who was beating up a freshman and also grabbed her by the neck. He told the freshman to leave, and as he did, Hansu began to beat the seniors. Later at night, he arrived in the dorm and saw Dialoka on the bed. He asked her that if she were to take up the entire bed herself, where would he suppose to sleep? She replied that she was just making sure that Salona didn't take the window bed. Hansu was shocked to learn that in the academy, they allowed boys and girls to stay in the same room. He then asked Dialoka where she would be sleeping, to which she informed him that ordinary slaves were supposed to sleep on the floor. Since she was not ordinary, she would sleep next to him. However, he quickly declined and planned on sleeping somewhere else. He then told her to follow him somewhere, to which she happily agreed, and asked where. He informed her that they would sneak into the academy late at night. Later, Hansu and Dialoka arrived at a hotel to look for the senior who could help them sneak into the academy. After finding the guy, Hansu explained that he needed his help to silently infiltrate the academy and offered him money. Although the guy agreed, he didn't trust Hansu because he had brought a high-level demon with him. He then told Hansu to leave the girl behind and go. Dialoka then kicked the guy in the face, causing others to rush in and attack her, but she easily managed to defeat them. While they were fighting, Hansu caught a glimpse of Dialoka's black panties, but quickly snapped out of it and decided to leave. Later at midnight, Hansu attacked a senior and took her cape. Although he was able to enter the academy quietly, he realized that it would be difficult if more people arrived, and it would be troublesome to immobilize them instead of ending them. Later, Dialoka asked why they had come to the academy so late at night, to which Hansu replied that he had some business with the statue. Upon seeing the statue, Dialoka informed him that Podonicus was a hero's comrade, and he tried to go for the hero's lady, but was expelled. As Podonicus held resentment against the heroes, he swore allegiance to the vampire queen, resulting in him becoming a vampire and ultimately succeeding in kidnapping the lady. Dialoka also informed him that she once heard that the statue contained a clue. She then told Hansu to look closely at the statue of Podonicus and the female swordsman he had kidnapped. Although there wasn't a path between them, it was strange that there wasn't a single obstacle between them. Moreover, Podonicus was looking at the swordsman, but she was looking somewhere else. So Dialoka suggested that they follow the direction where the female swordsman was looking. After following it, they found a map engraved in the ground. Dialoka quickly recognized it as a map of the area near the lake. However, that area was vast, and it would be impossible to search the entire area. But there was a legend that a freshwater mermaid who lived there turned into stone while endlessly waiting for Podonicus. Hansu then asked how far the place was, to which Dialoka pointed at the mermaid statue, stating it was here. Seeing the statue, Hansu wondered why she was crying while looking down. He then checked the statue's viewing direction, and suddenly something started to glow in his hand that appeared to be a ring. While wondering what it could be, he received a blessing called forgiveness that made others confess their sins when looking at his merciful face, and also made them forgive his sins looking at his sad face. Although Hansu was happy that he finally received a blessing and not a curse, a certain god didn't like the development and was extremely uncomfortable. Later, he was caught by the teachers who questioned Hansu's identity as he was being escorted by a high-ranking demon and didn't appear to be ordinary. He assured them that he was just a normal student, but the teachers didn't trust him. So he used his blessing of forgiveness to escape the situation, and it worked as all the teachers forgave him and left. Dialoka told him not to use this blessing on her, as she would forgive him even if he didn't use it. To this, Hansu replied that he was already using it on her. She then asked what sin he committed against her, which he didn't tell her about, getting a glimpse of her panties. In the morning, all the students arrived at the academy as today was their first day. Then the teacher began the introduction of the teaching staff, starting with the professor who would be handling the newly established subject, the Guardian of Flames, Miss Celeblis. As she introduced herself, Hansu didn't remember her. Instead, he felt familiar with the phoenix on her shoulder, and remembered a moment that he considered to be a bad memory. Then the principal came to the stage and informed everyone that this year at Hogwarts Academy would be the most important year, as the heroes would take admission. Hearing this news, the students were confused. Then the principal used magic to make a loud noise that almost made the students go deaf. She then told everyone to be quiet and explained that the classes would be divided into upper class and lower class. The rule was simple. They just had to fight until half of them collapsed. As she began the fight, the whole area became chaotic, and all the students started fighting each other. Meanwhile, a certain god was excited about the noisy atmosphere, and Hansu also began fighting, easily defeating all the students. While a certain god prayed for the peace of all the students. Later, as the fight ended, the teacher welcomed Hansu and the others to the upper classes. She also reminded them that if their results weren't good, they could always be sent to the middle class. She informed everyone that the subjects were categorized into two paths, knight and mage, and told them to choose the subject that suited them. She also announced that the class president title was given to Prince Razel. Meanwhile in the temple, the Saintess announced Choi as the tournament winner. She congratulated him and gave him the Holy Sword, a symbol of a hero that would help him grow stronger faster. She then told him to shout, "I want to become stronger," while holding the sword. When he did, a portal similar to Hansu's opened, and he was teleported to the Orc Sanctuary where he met Bruce, who welcomed him. As he was about to ask about the place, the Guardian Orc arrived and informed him that according to the rules, his training would begin. Meanwhile, the teacher wouldn't let Hansu join the classes, saying he wasn't prepared. When he asked why he couldn't join, the teacher informed him that those who didn't have the warrior's blessing couldn't attend his classes. He was then kicked out. Although he was extremely angry, he calmed himself down and remembered that most of the people he knew had the warrior's blessing. Pissed off, he used his blessing's outsider and fairy to burst open the door and showed the teacher his sword aura. Although the teacher was amazed, he still refused to accept him. So, Hansu extended the aura more, causing the teacher to accept him. He then asked the knight's youngest son how to learn the warrior's blessing, to which he replied that he learned it by using medicine, which made Hansu disgusted, as they didn't put any effort into it. Then he was approached by the class president, who praised him for his performance at the entrance ceremony and told him that if he became his subordinate, he would provide him with medicine that could help him get the warrior's blessing. Hansu declined, which made the guy angry. However, Hansu used his new blessing of forgiveness to easily make the guy forgive him. The outsider god was sure that Hansu was the type to become the class president, so the god was looking forward to the later development. Later, as starting with theoretical class right from the first day would be boring, the teacher prepared something that all the students would love, the dragon bone that had been subjugated recently, which he bought with his 10 years of savings. Hansu was surprised as he didn't expect to see this again and thought that the world was indeed small. After the classes, as Hansu and the others were discussing about the next class, 3 students called out to Hansu, and he quickly recognized them as the ones he sent to the lower class. He then told everyone to leave and decided to follow them as he was getting bored anyway. They led him to a place where Taker had been beaten up by the students who had lost to Hansu in the admission ceremony. It appeared that they wanted revenge for their humiliation. Hansu then opened a portal and took out a bone, easily defeating one of them, and challenged the other to come at him. The blonde-haired guy was shocked, as Hansu had been able to defeat the prince of the kingdom of Mercenary, who used heavy swordsmanship, a strong opponent against whom even he couldn't win. Hansu had also easily defeated the princess of the kingdom of Lake, who used her flexible body like a mermaid to deflect any attack. As there were only a few students left, Hansu provoked them, causing the guys to rush to attack him. But before they could do anything, his curse massacre and annihilation caused all the ghosts of the monsters who had died by his hand to appear and haunt the students. Hansu was confused as to why his curses had activated, and decided to end all of them quickly. Later, he went to Taker, who was pretending to be unconscious. Hansu told him to take the blame for defeating the royal students, as no one would believe that a level 1 could defeat them. Although the guy strongly opposed it, he had no other choice but to accept. Hansu then suspected that the guardian orc was spying on him, as he hadn't specified what he needed, but received a perfect bone with blood on it. A certain god asked for his opinion, but Hansu was sure the orc didn't send him something that he used to beat up others, as he had told the orc not to attack the natives who lived there. Meanwhile, in the orc's sanctuary, Choi repeatedly lost to the orc and got beaten while the orc felt bored, as he needed to control his power while attacking him. The orc then told Choi to get up and start over again. Although Choi knew that the guardian orc was a different level from the other orcs, he thought that this training would make him stronger and believed himself to be the legendary hero. He rushed towards the monster with his delusion, but he was easily caught, causing his bone to shatter, and he received a headbutt. Then, the orc threw him into the air while launching a punch at him. Meanwhile, Kogmos wondered why Dialoka was with Hansu and arrived at the goblin cave, where all the goblins welcomed him and called him the king. He quickly sensed something and recognized the creepy feeling that indicated a saintess was nearby. As the students arrived in the forest, they came across goblins, and thinking they were just measly goblins, they rushed to attack them, only to fall into their traps. Mion used fire magic to easily defeat some of them, and the remaining goblins were defeated by Eubora and Arya. Princess Athena informed Eubora that goblins were indeed weaker than orcs, but they shouldn't let their guard down since the goblins moved in groups and were able to set up traps. She also thinks that the armor made of dragon's bone triggered the goblins, so she tried to figure something out and decided that she and Prince Alsus would accompany the hero to compensate for the reduced number of members. Later, Eubora analyzed the area and found many traps, and although most of them were simple, some of them were quite dangerous. Alsus then advised the students to prepare a camp for today, as night falls quickly in the forest. After finishing preparations, a knight informed Alsus that they found footprints near the traps, and there were traces of the traps being dismantled and rebuilt. As the enemy could be a human, or even worse, a demon, he instructed the knight to report the situation to the saintess. Some days later, at night, Mion used fire magic to defeat some goblins, while Eubora attacked a giant goblin, but found it difficult to cut through. She was then helped by Alsus, who ordered all the knights to raise their swords and protect the heroes, as the goblins' sneak attacks kept occurring every night, and it was better to be careful. Meanwhile, Cogmos was sitting on the throne while a goblin bowed in front of him. The goblin informed him that their situation was a little bad, which shocked him, as he didn't expect the goblins to stand a chance against the hero and get annihilated. He quickly figured out that it was all because of Hansu, who massacred the orcs and werewolves, causing the hero's training to be lacking. So they came here to find prey, which meant he only had to face newbie heroes. He then ordered the goblin to quickly gather and prepare for an attack. Later, the goblins started to destroy their supplies instead of attacking the heroes, and when Mion tried to attack them, they easily dodged her every attack. Then a blue goblin appeared and shouted something, causing all the goblins to retreat. Thinking it was the commander, Eubora tried to follow it, but the blue goblin was actually Cogmos, who had disguised himself as a goblin through his research with his slaves. He then used one of his abilities and shouted out loud, causing all the heroes to have headaches while the goblins rushed to attack them. Somehow, they managed to survive and arrived at the camp, where Mion was covered in bandages, while Eubora was so tired that she developed dark circles under her eyes. Alsus was confused about the fact that the number of goblins they had defeated was similar to last year, but the blue goblin was remarkably stronger, and they needed to find a way to deal with it for the sake of the knight who sacrificed his life. Then, Princess Athena informed them that the Saintess had found the real culprit, a demon hiding in the rock mountain. Meanwhile, the Saintess was planning to accelerate the hero's growth through goblin hunting, but now they had lost a knight, and his corpse hadn't even been found. Despite all that, she still thought that this would be a great experience for the heroes, and ordered her subordinates to pay close attention to them, as she could resurrect dead people, but couldn't do anything about their state of mind. She then went into the goblins' forest, a wasteland, and used her blessings to grow plants there, which solved their food issue for now. But it was still meaningless to stay there, so she told her subordinates to prepare the heroes to get rid of the demon culprit. Meanwhile, Cogmos noticed the changes in the forest, and was angry as to why the Saintess was intervening. While he was thinking of a way, his slaves asked if he had any plans, to which he shouted at them and told them to shut up. He knew that the goblin and he would end up dying no matter what, but it would be possible to save the human girls. He thought to himself how ridiculous it was for someone who had always prioritized his life over everything else, and now trying to sacrifice his life to save humans. Meanwhile, Mion reached level 13 while hunting and planned to catch up with Eubora. However, she was troubled by the fact that she was deep inside the forest and out of mana. As she was planning to return, 2 goblins arrived and attacked her. At the same time, Hansu was following the direction indicated by the ring's light, which suddenly disappeared, indicating his arrival at the destination. He was then attacked by fire magic from above, which turned out to be from the magic teacher who scolded him. Hansu used his blessing of forgiveness, and the teacher forgave him, explaining that it was the magic shooting range. Hansu then encountered Leisha, whom he didn't recognize at first, but then remembered her and called her Leia. Leisha corrected him, stating that her name is Leisha, not Leia. This made Hansu angry, adding to his growing list of bothersome situations. Leisha asked Hansu what he was doing in the magic shooting range and if he wanted to learn magic. Hansu replied that he couldn't use magic, to which Leisha offered to teach him so he could be prepared to face a mage in the future. Hansu accepted her offer, and Leisha told him to be there the next day at the same time before leaving. Hansu then asked the god about the magic shooting range and if there was something hidden there. The god tried to avoid the question, which indicated that there was indeed something there. As they were talking, the class president called out to him, expressing anger at having been looking for him. Hansu attempted to use his blessing of forgiveness to escape the situation, but for some reason, it didn't work. This confused Hansu, who suspected that the class president had checked his stats. The class president suggested that they team up to become the strongest in the academy, to which he agreed as he heard that there would be group assignments, and it would be better to work with someone from the same class. The outsider god felt uncomfortable, and so after arriving at the dorm, he asked Dialoka how to hide the status windows. She explained that in order to peek at someone's status window, one needed a blessing, and resisting it also required a blessing. Hansu asked which blessing would be easier to get. to which she replied that there were many blessings, but none of them were easy to obtain. Suddenly Salona appeared and suggested that it didn't have to be a blessing. He could also use a curse, although it would be dangerous. Hansu liked the idea, while Dialoka stared at Salona maliciously, but she acknowledged her idea, despite her being a mere human, and suggested that Hansu obtain the curse of avarice, which exercises absolute control over possession, including the status window. The price for this curse is the owner's life. Hansu liked the idea and schemed something while a certain god stated that his expression looked suspicious. Hansu declined the god's suspicions. Later they arrived at the mercenary guild, where Hansu registered Dialoka as a mercenary. When she asked why, he explained that in order to gain the curse of avarice, he needed to own many slaves or possess a lot of wealth. By increasing her level to an extent that even he couldn't handle at his current level, he would receive the curse. Although Dialoka agreed, she worried about her curse hunting and explained that it was a powerful curse that could make an orc as strong as an ogre, comparable to the knight they had encountered. Hansu reassured her, telling her not to worry too much, as they were just going to hunt some werewolves. As they started to hunt the werewolves, Dialoka used her aura to attack, but due to her curse hunting, the attack was shallow. Hansu stepped in and easily slew all the werewolves. He then instructed Dialoka to bring their canines, and for some reason, she burst into laughter. Hansu noticed a slime eating one of the werewolves and told Dialoka to bring them right away, which she happily accepted, indicating that she had started to like Hansu. The next morning, Hansu arrived at the academy, where Taker complained that because of his fault, they had to clean the restroom for 15 days. Then Leisha called out to Hansu, which made Taker angry, as he had a crush on her. He asked about their relationship, and Hansu slammed him, expressing frustration at everyone making a fuss about everything. Leisha informed him that she would teach him magic after classes today, and then left. Hansu then dragged Taker to the low-class dorm, and upon arriving, Hansu was surprised by the dorm's condition. Then, Prince Alpus from the Night Kingdom, whom Hansu had beaten earlier, called out to him with his gang and kneeled, stating that they were representing their country. Kneeling in front of him was shameful, but they wanted to reconcile with him because if they didn't reach a higher class in the next exam, they would lose their titles as nobles and be cursed. After checking their stats, Hansu learned that those with the noble blessing had to distribute their experience to their bloodkin, as it would become harder for them to level up in the future. Hansu promised that he wouldn't bother them and told them to do what they wanted. This made all the guys happy, and they thanked Hansu, while a certain god became angry and protested that mingling with them was not what an outsider should do, and that they were not trustworthy. Later, as Hansu walked with Leisha, he was angry because everyone was looking at him strangely due to the guys kneeling earlier. He asked her where they were going, and she replied that they were going to a place where no one could disturb them. Hearing this, both the outsider god and Hansu were shocked, as they misinterpreted her words. They quickly realized that it was not what she meant. She then informed him that she had recently worked with a hero, which shocked Hansu. Leisha continued to explain that she had worked with the hero for a short period of time, but quit because he was too much for her to handle, as the guy hunts recklessly. Hansu quickly realized that she was talking about Oh Hanwoo, who used to read fantasy novels every day. He speculated that Oh Hanwoo must have adapted quickly due to his knowledge of fantasy worlds, while outsider god tilted their head at his thought and giggled slightly. Later, as they arrived at their destination, Leisha helped Hansu meditate, which worked, and he felt something hot rising. However, the outsider god felt very uncomfortable and punched him. Hansu ignored the god and continued to feel the increasing magic. Suddenly his blessing outsider activated, causing the magic to disappear, while the outsider god felt proud and joyful. Then, his blessing, outsider, ranked up from E to D, causing his body to overflow with energy and make it unstable. He quickly realized that if he tried to control it, his strength balance would collapse. So he gathered all his energy in his hand and shot it into the sky. While he felt refreshed, Leisha was shocked and asked him how he used magic. Seeing his dumbfounded expression, she realized that he used magic without even knowing it. Now that Hansu knew he could use magic, he tried to do it again and shot it into the sky several times. The teacher noticed and rushed to see who was using magic recklessly on campus. Upon seeing Hansu, who had skipped swordsmanship class and was now using magic, the teacher decided to teach him a lesson and told him to give up on magic. Hansu quickly tried to use his blessing of forgiveness to counter the situation, but it was nullified. As the guy rushed to attack him, Hansu used magic to counterattack. Later, he was forced to attend the magic class, although the teacher forgave him. He told Hansu to attend the magic classes sincerely, which he accepted. Then he noticed that everyone had partners, and since the class president didn't arrive, he went to sit next to Prince Alpus. Although Alpus initially refused to sit next to Hansu, he later accepted due to Hansu's threats. Then Celeblis arrived with her phoenix and introduced herself as the magic class teacher. Her phoenix flew over to Hansu and started glaring at him, confusing him as to why the bird was acting this way only towards him. Teacher Celeblis announced that the class would be held twice every month. Thinking it was a good idea, Hansu asked the prince's opinion, but messed up his name and called him Mulpus, to which the prince shouted loudly, correcting him that his name was Alpus, not Mulpus. As Celeblis scolded the prince, she noticed Hansu sitting next to him and became flustered. She quickly withdrew her statement and said that the class would end today, and left, saying that from tomorrow onward, they would have classes every day at the same time. Hearing that classes would be held every day, Hansu blamed Alpus, while wondering why he keeps meeting guys like Kogmos. Meanwhile, Mion woke up and met Kogmos, who welcomed her into his cradle and introduced himself as the 14th son of the Dark King, Kogmos. Although Mion was shocked, she was attracted to his looks and voice. Thinking that even the son of the Dark King was considered a prince, she decided to seize the opportunity and used her blessing charm to charm Kogmos. However, it didn't work on him, as he easily nullified her blessing and eliminated her, causing him to receive the Curse Hero, which reduced his experience points obtained through hunting and achievements. He was mortified as he couldn't level up anymore, meaning he couldn't take Dialoka from Hansu. Suddenly, a goblin informed him that he had a guest, who turned out to be Eubora. She quickly noticed Mion's dead body and prepared to attack, while Kogmos introduced himself and asked why she was alone. Prince Alsus appeared from behind and replied that she wasn't alone. Kogmos was shocked as Prince Alsus had many high-ranking blessings. Now that he had come this far, he couldn't back away. So he introduced himself as the one who rules over the goblins of the Rock Mountain, Kogmos. Princess Athena also arrived and asked if the trap was his doing, to which he replied affirmatively. Alsus then rushed to attack him, but Kogmos told him not to, as he had set up a trap that could potentially destroy Mion's body beyond resurrection. Alsus rushed to protect Mion, but was too slow, so Eubora used her blessing sprint to move quickly, but fell into Kogmos' trap. He then used a magical string to pull Mion's body away. As Eubora was in trouble, Alsus pushed her away, placing himself under the trap. Then, Princess Athena used her fire magic to destroy the trap, despite that he was badly injured. However, Kogmos' trap didn't end there, as he brought out 2 giant crossbows and threw Mion to the other side, but Eubora managed to save her. As she looked behind, she saw Alsus covered in arrows, and Kogmos respected him for sacrificing himself to save a hero's life. Angry, Princess Athena prepared her fire magic to attack Kogmos, but quickly stopped as he used Alsus's body as a shield, and informed her that if she used her fire magic, Alsus couldn't be resurrected. While she was distracted, he shot an arrow through Alsus's cape, causing her demise. He then went to Eubora, who called him a coward. He replied that it was they who brought an entire knight unit just to slay some goblins, and he was only at level 22 while she was at level 19. But her standards of blessing were way higher than his, so if she hadn't let her guard down, it would have been him who would have ended up dead. He then advised her that in war, where everyone is an enemy, one should not be picky about the means and methods when their life is on the line. She accepted the advice and rushed to attack him, but he quickly blocked it. Then he took off his suit that was made of dark magic and used it to wrap around her body, which made her unable to move, and as she couldn't breathe, she closed her eyes and thought about Hansu. Suddenly, the Saintess appeared from above, stating that this was not the kind of ending she wanted and saying that Demon Kogmos had crossed the line.